It was so awkward for so many reasons.
So good!
It wasn't even something weird.
Hello and welcome to All Doubt, where we talk about the media we love and why we love it. Today's media, Die Hard. But first, Vincent, what's up?
I forget what's happened since the last time we recorded, since it's been so long.
Yeah, it's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah, what did I do 3 weeks ago? Did I tell you about, was that before or after I watched Baby Driver? Have I talked to you about Baby Driver?
I think you did on one of the previous recordings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I won't talk about that then.
Good idea.
I recently got back into this game, Dwarf Fortress. Have I told you about Dwarf Fortress?
No. Is that like Baby Driver?
No, it is not like Baby Driver. And I was leaving a gap there, so we could cut that out. But apparently we're going to keep it in.
Yeah, I fucked it up.
Okay, but Dwarf Fortress. Have I told you about Dwarf Fortress?
No.
Okay, it is, and it's an incredibly deep game.
Yeah.
In that it's one of those games where you don't control a character specifically. It's somewhere. It's if I would say it's somewhere between SimCity and The Sims. Somewhere in between.
Oh, okay.
You're not controlling people specifically, but there's a settlement you have to look over.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of one of those town builder.
Like Spore, maybe.
Not so much Spore, because that when you're controlling someone specifically, don't get me started on Spore. That could be an entirely other episode.
Yeah.
We will talk about that in another episode then.
Yeah, sure.
But have you played Dungeon Keeper or Evil Genius?
No.
Or one of those town building games.
I mean, yeah, I get the idea. Like Age of Empires?
Not so much like a war one, but when you're building like a town.
Right.
Or what are some town anyway?
GoldenEye. I'm kidding. It makes no sense.
I don't think you were playing GoldenEye correctly. I mean, yes, and. Okay, so Dwarf Fortress is a. You okay there?
Oh yes.
It's incredibly deep. There's two modes. There's the Fortress mode, and then there's Adventurer mode, where you're controlling one dude, and it's not a first person, but it's like a RPG game.
Okay.
In Adventurer mode, but Fortress mode is the main thing, and you're in command of this fortress. You're building it you're building it. You got little dwarves walking around as citizens. You can distribute jobs, so this many people will be farmers, this many people will be smiths, this many people will be brewing.
Sorry, I'm really trying to derail you here.
We'll be brewing the alcohol with that they need. So this many will be doctors and so on. And, you carve out the rooms out of the mountains and so on. And the game keeps track of everything. Almost literally everything. The game keeps track of, the history of, objects. It keeps track of the lineage of all the dwarves and all the people and all the goblins and all the everything. If not so much the animals, but all the smart things.
Yeah.
It keeps track of every individual layer of skin on the units. The units that are fatter get damaged less from being hit by things because they have more padding.
Okay.
Okay, let me give you an example. This isn't one that is from one of my games, but this is one I read about, so I assume it's true.
Uh-huh.
So in one of the games, as the story goes, this guy was playing, and his dwarves were fighting some goblins or something, and they won. The dwarves won, but one of them got his midsection cut open, right? But they were able to rush him to the hospital room, and one of the surgeon dwarves was able to patch him up, and he carried on his way. And it wasn't until a little bit later that the player noticed that I should also mention the graphics are terrible. It's basically ASCII art.
Okay.
Instead of a picture for a horse, instead of a picture of a horse, it's a lowercase h, a brown H.
Oh, okay.
A goblin is a lowercase green G.
Oh.
The dwarves themselves are smiley faces.
Oh.
But so it's very visually lo-fi.
Yeah.
But everything else is super deep. So this guy, he was able to get the dwarf rushed to the hospital. They were able to fix him up, and he went on his way. And it wasn't until a bit later when the player was looking at the dwarves that he noticed that the dwarf who had been patched up had two tildes trailing, the squiggly line.
Yeah.
Two tildes trailing behind him whenever he would like walk around, and he looked into it, and apparently the surgeon who operated on the dwarf was good enough to save his life, but not good enough to remember to put his guts back inside him. And apparently the tildes were representing his like intestines just being like dragged on the floor behind him.
Oh god.
But no, it like if true, it keeps track of stuff like that, and it is, people have said that since you're doing a lot of mining, that a textbook about geology would be as useful as a strategy guide.
Really?
But I don't entirely buy into that.
Oh.
It's a very deep game, and it's just one guy. Well, like two guys, two brothers. But I think one of them, from what I understand, does most of the coding. And he's been working on it for like 10, 15 years as his like sole project, his like magnum opus.
Oh, jeez.
And it's entirely like run by donations of people like donating money to keep the project alive.
Yeah.
Also is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
In addition to the not pretty graphics, which is a turn off for a lot of people. It is also like since it's not done. It's technically it's not done at all, anywhere near done, even though he's been working on it for like however long. But so there's no tutorial really. There's no like this is how you do this is how you do that. There's no instructions at all. There's the wiki, but there's no instructions within it. So you just got to figure out your stuff or look at the wiki, I suppose, which is what I did. And it's all like keyboard. There's the different keyboard buttons do different things. They're called keys. Yes, I know. But they do you've never played this game?
No.
If you were to guess, how many buttons do you think it takes to build a floor tile?
How many to build
to order the construction of a floor tile?
Like to tell one of your letters to build a floor tile?
Yes.
Oh, I would say 1, Vincent.
Okay.
Surprise me.
It takes. Okay, first you gotta press B for build to open the build menu.
Yeah.
Then you press Shift C for a capital C for constructions constructions.
Yeah.
And then you press F, I think, for floor.
Yeah. And
then the arrow keys and whatever buttons to designate the space you want the floor tiles to. So it's like upwards of 4 buttons.
Yeah.
And you don't know that you need to press those buttons because there's no instructions within the game itself. I think there's a help menu, but that's just even more. So like the very first time I played it, everyone just died because I did not know how to dig.
Oh.
I could not figure out the button to like...
Wait, why? What was digging saving you from?
The elements, the goblins, the wolves.
Oh, you don't start with a building?
No, you start, you are like, you start as the like, settlement group that like arrives at the location and you have to build up from there.
Oh.
With your like wagon of supplies.
I see.
The like diehard people.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, well,
there it is.
There's a reference to the thing we'll be talking about later. The people who are like really, really good at the game, or like who want to challenge or whatever, are, from what I understand, able to build a fort. Like normally when you start, you have a loadout of like some animals for resources and food. You got some access to chop down trees, some like barrels of food, some barrels of wine, some like other assorted tools, some bags, some rope, some supplies and stuff, some seeds and so on. But apparently, I guess some stuff to build stuff out of. If you want, I think you can find most of the dirt there. But but apparently, some people are like really good at it, or who want like a particular challenge. All they start out with is like an axe and maybe an anvil and nothing else, because they need an axe to like chop down wood to get stuff started. And you need an anvil to like smith stuff eventually.
Yeah.
And with those two things, from what I understand, I haven't read about this in a while, but you can apparently just build whatever you need if you embark at the right location with the right resources.
How would you dig a hole? Isn't that like? I assume that was one of the first things.
You would chop down a tree and then use the wood to build a carpentry thing.
Shovel of some sort.
And then in the carpentry workshop, you would construct a training axe.
Oh.
Or no. You'd need, I think you might need some, I haven't read this in a while. I think you might also need like a piece of ore or something.
Oh, okay. I was really hoping that you'd say, like, you take the trees, you build the carpentry wood shop, then you make a shovel to dig a hole to sleep in, but not in the carpentry wood shop. That'd be nuts.
No, I think you need like a pickaxe. That's how you dig.
Oh, okay.
And I think those can only be made of metal. But so I think that's what you need the anvil for.
Yeah.
If you want to be like completely like from scratch. But yeah, no, it is nuts.
It sounds infuriating.
Oh yes. At the beginning, like if like there's a super steep learning curve. Like the learning curve is a cliff.
Yeah.
It is not a kind game. Like the slogan of the game is "losing is fun," because like also in the fortress mode, in the like settlement fortress mode, there is no like win condition. Yeah. It's whatever it's whatever you want to accomplish yourself. Maybe you want to make a like industry of making really cool bags to export to the merchants, or like some crafts to sell to the merchants, or you want to make it entirely based around this like livestock farming or whatever, or you can or you want to make a super efficient or whatever. You can whatever your goal, whatever you want your goal to be. Yeah. That could be your goal, but there is no like win screen. There's no like you made it, you're done, congrats. Yeah. So in that way, all games theoretically will end in disaster. Will end in the fort collapsing, because there's no end state. You can like leave if you like. There's in the like quit menu, save and then come back to it later. Yeah. You can like abandon it to ruin, and then everyone will just leave. Yeah. And if you go into adventure mode, you can like come back and see the ruins, but it doesn't get like destroyed or anything. It's just empty and it's like abandoned or whatever. And you'll like see the villagers like in other towns or whatever. Or you could like just let it I forget how they phrase it in the menu, but you could just like automate it or whatever, where like it like, and I think narratively it's like, it falls into a routine that you do not need to oversee anymore, so it just goes as if it was like a normal NPC town that you could visit as a adventurer or whatever. Yeah. And like it I feel like I'm talking too much about this, but
it's been a while, I guess. But you sound really passionate about it.
It is such a deep game. It is such a weird, intricate game.
But playing a lot of this,
I just leave it on the background because I'm at a place where it's pretty stable.
Oh, really?
And also, like, I try to minimize the fun.
What?
I try to minimize the danger.
Oh, the danger.
Yeah,
minimize the fun.
The community uses fun as synonymous with like things going terribly, terribly wrong.
Oh, okay. Because
something fun happened today.
Right.
Of like five like dragon shut up and like burnt down the thing. But as the game is right now, cage traps are super overpowered in that most things can't fall into them. Oh. And then you just have them, and you don't have to fight at all. Oh. There's like two or three categories of things that are like trap immune, so they don't fall into the traps. But I just like shut the door with like a drawbridge that they can't destroy. I've found tricks to keep my dwarves alive. Oh. Although that's not as from what I understand, a lot of the fun comes from something terrible happens, and then having to bootstrap yourself back up from the disaster.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So you've been playing this a lot. Well, I mean, it's what's new in your life.
I suppose. Yeah, I tend to avoid it during like school times because it's one of the games I can just throw my time away at. Yeah. Where I'll like sit down to play for a bit and then look up and it's the next day. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. That was Skyrim for me for a long time. Yeah.
I never really got into Skyrim.
Oh, did you try it?
Yes,
yeah.
I tried it.
It's a weird question, I guess.
No, I never gave it a No, like I tried
You never got into it. I mean, I never got into a lot of things I would try because I never tried them. So
I played it a bit, but like I've played a lot of Fallout, which is by the same people, right?
Is it? Did not know that.
Bethesda, I think, it's the bigger.
Oh, that's right.
And I guess I like the theming of that more than of Skyrim. Oh, I like laser guns more than like cool swords. I guess, right? Because I also in Fallout games, in the Bethesda Fallout games, they have VATS. Have you played the Fallout games?
No, only the first one.
Right. But in the first one, there's the it's a turn-based game, right? Yeah. But since the newer Fallouts, since Fallout 3 and beyond, they're first person games. But sort of as a gesture towards the back end of those turn-based, they have VATS, which is I think it's the same as in the first one, like the Vault Tech Assisted Targeting System, VATS, where if you're in a combat situation, you can press the VATS button where it pauses everything. In 3, it pauses everything, and you can like point at the parts where you want the guy to shoot at, and it'll list the percentage like, oh, there's a 10% chance to hit the head, there's a 40% chance to hit the left arm, there's a 20% chance to hit the right arm because it's more behind the other thing.
Yeah.
You know? I think with 4, they sort of, it's not frozen anymore, it's just super slow-mo.
Oh.
So you can't just hit that and then just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I really like that because it's not fun to miss when you're shooting at something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and it also has this cool, like, every once in a while it'd go into this cool, like, bullet time of, like, the bullet flying at the super mutant's head and then the head exploding or whatever the thing is. Something like that, because it took away, it made it so I didn't need to worry as much about aiming or like, you know, tracking this moving target.
Yeah.
And also I could be far away, you know, because it's mostly guns. You know, there's some melee weapons, but it's mostly guns.
Yeah.
Right, because it's the apocalypse.
Right.
And it's like futuristic 50s future kind of thing. And so there's like ray guns and like plasma rifles and whatever. But in Skyrim, it's mostly close combat. It's mostly swords and axes and stuff. And there's the bow and arrow, but it's not as it's not as satisfying because you can't shoot as fast. You know?
Well, and with Skyrim, one of the skills you get as an archer is slow motion. And as you build it up, it gets slower and slower. Until it's like too slow. That was actually annoying because like I remember pulling back the bow and it was incredibly slow. And I'm just waiting for it to be full so I could shoot. But is that what you mean? Like there was that far range stuff and magic.
Sure, but like I don't know, those to me weren't as like the magic and the archery didn't grab me as much as like a cool gun. Yeah, because like and you know, sure, some of the guns in Fallout are basically magic. Yeah. In a way, in the weird like sci-fi, you know, like the alien blaster is basically I don't know, something a death ray. Right? But I don't know. Also, like it's. You know, like I myself I'm more into sci-fi than like fantasy. So I much the genre thing for me. Yeah. But also, like I remember there was one cave in Skyrim. I think it was like a vampire cave or something. Pretty early on, I guess, because I didn't really get too far into it. But as you go into the cave, I took out some of the lesser, like not the main vampire guy, and then when I got to the last room, there was like a long dining table covered in food, and there was just the one guy left there because I had killed everybody else, and I was like on a ledge, like at the other end of the room. So I just kept like pulling back my arrow and like hitting him in the head. Yeah. And he'd look up, look around, walk around for a bit, then sit back down and like hit him again in the head. And I think it got to a point where there were like 2 or 3 arrows just like sticking out of his neck. Oh yeah. And or like, because you know, like there's a small chance for the arrow to like when you loot the body to retrieve the arrow. There's a small chance for that. When I eventually killed him after like 40 minutes of just like slowly.
40 minutes?
Maybe not 40 minutes, but like a really like an unrealistically long time. Oh yeah. Of like continuously hitting this guy with 1 arrow. Yeah. And him just like sitting back down in the same spot. Right. When I looted his body, he had like 5 of my arrows on him. Like that's how many arrows I think I ran out of arrows. I was sitting there for so long, just like slowly like hitting him. And like also they're arrows, you can see where they came from. You know, I'm not like banking it off the cave wall. You know, like
I guess back down's a stretch too.
Yeah, I guess my complaint is that this game with the dragons and the super shouting isn't realistic enough. I guess, and that this other game with super mutants and space aliens and ray guns is realistic enough for me.
So realistic. Yeah, I get that too. I mean, yeah, you have to extend your disbelief for a game.
Yeah, and I guess that like it helps if it's like the genre you like. Yeah, you know, and I you know, like I said, I'm more of a sci-fi. Yeah, sci-fi is more interesting to me than the old like fantasy stuff.
That is a good question for our viewers. We should do like a poll or something of like, is your thing sci-fi or fantasy? I was gonna say Middle Earth, but not necessarily Middle Earth. Also, we don't have viewers. We have listeners.
I think that's sort of splitting hairs. Although, yes, listeners, let us know whether you like fantasy more or sci-fi more, or if you like them both, and you know why. I guess. But also, speaking of fantasy, I recently actually, and it should probably be out by the time this episode releases, wrote a short story for a collection, story collection.
Oh, really?
I believe the website is Bundle Rabbit, where they sell bundles of like ebooks and such. And the bundle is about dwarves, so all the short stories in the collection are about dwarves, as is my story, because it's part of the collection about dwarves.
Right.
We'll have the name of the collection and a link to it in the show notes.
Oh man, that's so cool.
But and it's for money. So like I get like I think like a quarter every time someone buys it. Like after like all the money is divided, I think I get like a quarter from every sale.
That's very cool. Well, you're gonna get my quarter.
Cool. That I will hold you to that. But yeah, no, it was neat. Like like I said, I'm more of a sci-fi guy than a fantasy guy, but like I had fun writing that story. It was fun.
Nice.
It was a neat story. I won't say too much about it now, so you have to buy it to read it.
Yeah. Cool.
What about, was there anything in particular that I already asked you this about Skyrim that you liked?
I don't know. See, I'm usually opposed to games that just have you finding things, like finding quests. Like, I never got into World of Warcraft because I knew that would consume my life. But also, immediately, there were so many finding quests I don't really care about. And yet, I really like Skyrim, and it feels like it's a mix of just finding things and fighting things. And, like, yeah, there is the story, which I appreciated enough, but I didn't like it. Like, I found myself just skipping through a lot of the dialogue just to fight more things. And it became a sort of...
Then how would you find out what injury they got to their knee that time?
See, that...
And what they used to do before that?
That didn't even come up that much. That came up, I think, twice in my whole time of playing it. And I made that joke so much before I actually played the game. I think they might have even fixed it at one point. But anyways, see, I don't really know why I liked it. It was like a time killer. Like, I could have been napping or something, but I was just choosing to play mindlessly, killing things.
Well, I suppose, it's a big world, can go around doing stuff.
Yeah.
Can discover new locations.
Yeah, well, one thing that I liked that I'm not proud of is to, like, mess things up. And
tell me more.
Well, Skyrim is geared towards people who like that, because if you want to be, like, a thief, you can just stop everything you're doing and start pickpocketing everyone. And just, like, going out at night and robbing places and trying to be really good at that.
Although I do remember, speaking of being a thief, I remember someone talking about their playthrough of Skyrim. And that they really got into the Thieves Guild quest line. Yeah. So they finished the Thieves Guild quest line, so they're like the king of the thieves or whatever you become at the end of it. So they like max out their sneaking, their pickpocketing or whatever. They were the boss thief.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
For sure.
And that was mostly in this one, Thief Town. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And then they go to the next town, and they talk to the guy there, and like, I forget the specifics. They were like, do you want to join the Mages Guild? If you do, kill these 5 wolves. And the player was like, no, what? Do you know who I am? I am the master thief. I could kill you right now in the middle of town, and no one would see me. I am not going to kill these wolves for you. And he just decided, to stop playing, because, like, narratively for his character, that was a neat place to stop, He reached the pinnacle of thiefhood, and, his character was just gonna be that, and so he just stopped playing. And, clearly he had fun climbing the ranks or whatever, finishing the quests for the thieves and becoming the king thief. But then disconnect of that not having a tangible effect on the wider world, I guess. Right.
That's annoying for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it having that problem. But it's, like, I find that idea really interesting, that you're rewarded for just doing, like, anything you like. Like, if you get bored and start killing NPCs, like, a little clippy pops up, and it's like, hey, I noticed you're killing NPCs. Do you want to join the Thieves Guild? And then that's just your new quest. Like, or no, sorry, not the Thieves Guild, the Assassins Guild. Like, that's your new
I was going to say, I don't think that'd be a very good thing for a thief to do.
No, I think they actually don't kill anyone, because those two are, the Assassins and Thieves are separate. And then aside from that, there's, like, armies and stuff you can join. And then, like, a whole vampire thing. Like, you mentioned vampires. You can become one and become a werewolf. And that can be a whole game. Like, you can follow one thing, and then if you want, stop it there. Maybe start a new game. and then follow the next thing, you'll never beat the game. Like, it just keeps going. And that's intriguing.
I think the you will never beat the game is factually incorrect.
Oh, really?
I think there is there's a finite amount of stuff to do in the game. There's a lot of it, sure, but I don't think, like, compared to like I was talking about earlier, Dwarf Fortress, where there is no end, really.
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because I've heard people say, like, that you can't beat it, and I sort of took that for granted. Skyrim, yeah. Because of all the downloadable content. To do it, you'd have to live to be 100 or something.
I don't know. I don't feel like that's true.
I don't know.
Again, I played very little of the game, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a finite, from what I understand, it's a finite amount of material. It might be a lot of material, but like, I don't know. Like, in some of the games of Dwarf Fortress, in adventurer mode, there have been some games where someone has been able to, like, go around the world map and just kill every living thing on the planet.
Yeah.
They actually have, like, as like powers rise and fall, there's different, like, names of different ages, like the age of myth, when there's still all, like, monsters around, the age of man, if the biggest civilization aren't humans, the age of dwarves, the age of fairy tale, when there's only a couple magical things.
Yeah.
And, like, I think it's called, like, the age of death or something, when, like, everything is dead.
Oh god.
Or, like, most of the things are dead.
Yeah.
So they have a name for that, but I imagine took a very long time for this player to go around to every town, every village, every settlement, every camp.
Yeah.
In this, it might have been a smaller map or a larger map, because the maps can be huge or pretty small, but still pretty big, even the smallest one. And killed every single thing. And I, again, not knowing much about Skyrim, feel like that the entirety of Skyrim wouldn't take as long as that.
Yeah, I don't know. But who probably does know? Our listeners. So you should tell us. Email us.
Yeah. Am I completely wrong? Or am I, like I think, completely correct? Let us know.
Am I completely wrong? Or just somewhat wrong? Or maybe right? Let's talk about Die Hard.
Yes.
So I feel like I should start with talking about Die Hard.
Okay, yeah. Like you haven't seen Die Hard before, right?
No.
This is your first time watching it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, and I didn't like it.
Okay.
It brought up a lot of feelings for me. It was fun. It was fun to watch, and it had a really interesting story and a lot of really creative parts to the story, like how the main character has no shoes on and has hardly any clothing, and it's just him against all these terrorists. And also Alan Rickman's in it. He's fantastic. There were a lot of little things that I liked. Also, like, the build-up of suspense in so many different ways. It was really, like, it was thrilling to watch. And I can see why people love it so much. I didn't like just the basic premise of the movie, though.
No?
How it just seems so rooted in the kind of masculinity that I find really annoying.
Sure.
Like, just being strong, being super strong, being loud and angry and strong, and not showing your emotions because you're strong, and then showing your emotions only when you're super vulnerable. It really bothers me. I feel like it's important and it's a thing and it's cool that exists. It's just not my kind of movie. Like, I wouldn't seek out a movie like this to watch it.
Okay, sure. So you didn't like it from the masculinity angle.
Yeah.
Are there any other angles that you think it might have done better at?
Oh yeah, I mean, just as an action movie, like, the action was amazing.
Sure.
Like, all the thrilling, like, adventure and the fights were really good. Although men those were, like, it's hard for me to watch fighting in this and not think about how it's men only solving their problems with violence. I'm not a fan of seeing that on anything, because it's just been done so much. Like, the one scene where the German man with blonde hair gets hung by a chain.
The main henchman.
Yeah. The whole time when they're fighting with that and, like, swearing at each other, and then he gets hung so violently or hanged so violently, I was just like, ugh, I don't care. Just stop doing this.
like, I think on some level, like, that guy was supposed to be worse than Alan Rickman's character, right? Because he was the more, like, bloodthirsty henchman, whereas Alan Rickman was like, no, just calm down for a bit, and then we'll deal with him later.
Oh, yeah.
That henchman was like, no, I want to kill him now. But I think one angle that it did do relatively well on, or at least better on, was on like a racial angle. You know, like
I also had that thought.
It's the John McClane's wife, Holly McClane, or Gennaro. I think she's going by her maiden name for much of the movie.
Yeah, by the end she says McClane.
Yeah. But the building she works at is, Nakatomi Plaza. Her boss is a Japanese man.
Yeah.
A good chunk of the hostages were like Japanese men in suits, although they like largely disappeared halfway through, and it was mostly just like crowds of women screaming.
Yeah,
which
was
was
that too.
Weird.
Yeah.
But also like the two of John McClane's supporting characters were African American characters of Argyle, the limo driver, and Al, I believe his name was, the police officer who is talking him through everything or communicating with him. And even on Alan Rickman's team, the terrorists team, they had a black character as their like tech support guy, their like techie guy, and that all those people, that was a number of persons of color that you don't even always see on movies nowadays.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought that was rather notable.
Yeah, I agree. There was also the one henchman, Yuli.
Oh yeah.
Who's visibly Asian, and he had
that one scene he like grabs the Crunch bar out of
the what?
He grabs the chocolate bar when the SWAT team's about to come in.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, like he has an interesting. It's a small role, but that very easily and very often is just given to a white dude in a lot of movies, and it's neat to see that it didn't go that way in this. Yeah, I agree. That was good. What else do you like about it? I'm really curious because this movie was your pick, so I want to know why you like it so much.
Well, it was mainly my pick because you hadn't seen it.
Oh, okay.
But I've one thing that's also interesting to me is that I've heard the argument that it is the most Christmas movie.
Why?
What do you think about that? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I that's actually something else that I thought was really neat and clever, that it's all on Christmas. And I imagine when this came out in the 80s, people were like, oh, hell yeah, like finally something different for a Christmas movie. Because I think Christmas is still the biggest box office day of the year. Well,
certainly like Boxing Day is certainly the biggest like sales day.
Oh yeah, but for seeing movies, it's December 25th. I believe. I
would think like, I guess maybe for a single day, but I would imagine like some of them are closed or like the summer blockbusters. But I'm sorry, go on. Christmas being a big day.
Oh. I guess if you're thinking about it's the most Christmas movie, like there's like greed and consumerism. No, I have no idea. You're gonna have to fill me in on this.
Okay, so I have some notes here. I will say that these are not like I did not come up with these myself. These are the arguments that other people have put forward.
You're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yes, but I think it makes a compelling case. Of how like it does not work. The main point of this is that it does not. The main point of this is that it does not work if it's not Christmas. Is what they argue, because it needs to be Christmas. It needs to be a Christmas party. John McClane is coming to visit his family. He's not gonna come visit for like St. Patrick's Day or something. Well, if this was on St. Patrick's Day, it wouldn't really work.
That's true.
He needs the Christmas tape to wrap the gun around his back.
Oh yeah.
And he needs the Santa hat to like taunt the terrorists when he sends that first guy down the elevator.
Sure.
But one of the most compelling things, though, the point of the movie, the broad message, maybe not message, but the broad idea of the movie is overcoming materialism to bring family together. Because Alan Rickman's character, he says it's about all these like ideologies. Oh, you greedy capitalist Americans, and it's like an ideological argument of like my ideology is better than this capitalistic, so I will take you down a peg by terrorizing you or whatever. But it turns out he just wants the money. He wants the bearer bonds. He wants the vast fortune in bearer bonds hidden behind this like 7 locked safe.
Yeah.
This vault with 7 locks on it.
Yeah, that's right.
And John McClane needs to stop him to reconnect with his estranged ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
Or had they been divorced, or were they like in the process of being? I forget the details of that.
I believe it was the process. Doesn't really matter. They're separated.
Yeah, the community comes together. Like he has the young limo driver who is a person of color, and the black police officer who they're not related by blood, but they become friends over the course of this event of their lives. So it's bringing the community together. Family is not just by blood. It's the people who are there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And like also. A bit more of a shallow point, but his wife's name is Holly. And in a way, it snows at the end with all the paper flying around, So, like...
Go on.
What do you think about that?
About her name being Holly? It is Holly.
Yes.
And John was a prophet.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Still doesn't make me like the movie. Although we're not here to rate it. We're here to talk about it, which I have to keep in mind.
Yeah, like it, but like, again, I get some more stuff about it being a Christmas movie, like...
You're right, I was derailing.
Like, John McClane does not want to be there at the beginning, largely. Or like, no, at the beginning, he hates flying. That is one of the first things he says. That is the first thing you see that is his establishing character moment of him not being okay being on the plane. He needs this stranger on the plane beside him to walk on the carpet barefoot, turn your feet into fists.
Yeah.
That'll help you get over your airplane, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why he is without shoes for the movie, right?
That's right.
So it opens with him saying, I do not like flying. Which suggests he does not want to be there, or at least he does not want to be there by flying. And you fly because it's faster than like driving or I don't know, a boat or whatever.
Right.
Although you wouldn't really take a boat from. But anyway, he doesn't like to fly. But because it is Christmas. And on Christmas, you're with your family.
Yeah.
He is there. It cannot he's not like, oh, I'm here to visit my family for Arbor Day. No, it's not gonna, it has to be a Christmas movie. It is and so, the argument goes, it is the most Christmas movie.
Well, it has to be a Christmas movie. That doesn't mean it's the most Christmas movie. Like, Christmas Vacation had to be a Christmas movie.
But I mean, like, to differentiate it from movies that are Christmas movies and movies that take place at Christmas.
Yeah.
The argument argues that Die Hard is a movie that is a Christmas movie.
You're right.
That's it. Got away from me. And it's a Christmas movie and not just a movie that takes place during Christmas.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, tell me more.
But I find that interesting. That's cool. I appreciate it. I just don't have anything else to say about it. I can derail if it's okay that I derail.
Oh, okay, let's go with that.
At the start, you said you were talking about how he took his shoes off. At that point, up until I think like the terrorists arrived, which I knew it was coming anyways. Like that's why I'm here. But I appreciated that the first 20 minutes were just world building. And I thought, I really like being in the 80s. Like, this is super interesting, just seeing the style and the aesthetic of it all, and even the way the movie's filmed and stuff like that. And I liked that it took 20 minutes to set up the scene. I remember War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. That bothered me as a kid because it felt like they took 10 minutes to talk about the scene and to set it all up, and then aliens come, and then it's just an alien movie right after that. And it felt in this, to me, like they took their time and you got to see all the little parts of his trip there. And it was really building up the suspense to the terrorists coming.
Well, in War of the Worlds, there was that was War of the Worlds, right? Where there was the continuous thing about him getting his daughter to breathe, to relax.
Yeah.
So there was stuff other than the aliens, but yes,
yeah.
I agree. It's, especially in the dialogue, it was very, Die Hard.
Yeah.
Especially in the dialogue, Die Hard was a very 80s movie. There were a couple lines that are like, oh, that is... There were a couple lines that felt to me of the same attitude that eventually became the 90s very in your face kind of tone, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the foundations of grunge you're talking about?
Maybe not grunge specifically, but that, like, attitude. Because, like, there was, and also a bit of the, like, them interacting with technology, right? Because, like, you know, when John McClane arrives at the office building.
Oh, the computer.
With the little, like, keyboard,
yeah,
touch screen, and you know, where narratively, that's how he finds out that Holly is going by her maiden name and not rather than her married name.
Yeah.
You know, as sort of like a character thing. But then after he types it in, you know, the guy at the desk says like that. Oh, she's at the party. The only thing happening in this building at all right now. So I'm like, why are you making him type in the name?
Yeah, she's at the place where everyone's at. Right?
Yeah, there's only. You're either here for the party or you're in the wrong place. You know, like he could have saved him however long it took him to type in the name twice. But also like it was such a very like the way they talked about their technology. You know, like oh this is pretty new, and like oh yeah, if you need to find the bathroom, it'll help you find your zipper or something. You know, like it's a very like pithy, very like one-liner. Maybe not a one-liner, but like a very snappy, sarcastic thing to say about like you know you wouldn't say that now.
Yeah.
Really about like technology. You know. It felt very of the era to me, or at least leading up to an era.
Oh yeah, I mean, imagine if he had a cell phone through the whole thing.
Oh yeah, no, it would not work.
No.
Well, I haven't seen any of the recent Die Hard. Maybe
sure they have. They work cell phones into the new ones. But for this particular movie, like that was a big part of it. How he had to use a walkie-talkie. And it's on the same wavelength that the terrorists can hear, as well as all the police officers. If he had a cell phone, he would have just called immediately.
Yeah,
police.
Or at least they would have had like a 10-minute scene of them just taking everybody's cell phone. Like in, have you seen the movie Inside Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, they specifically gather everybody's cell phone because that's a thing that exists as an element in the time period of the present that they're doing it in.
But I remember that movie, Payphone.
Phone Booth?
Phone Booth, yeah, that's right. It's, it
delivered on the promise of the title, though.
Yo, absolutely. he stayed in
like an hour and a half of him, was it Colin Firth? Colin Farrell?
I couldn't even tell you.
Just an hour and a half of him just being in a phone booth.
That's very of the time, hey? I remember like a year or two afterwards, there's no phone booths.
I think even in the movie they did say it's one of the last ones.
Oh, really?
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, certainly it's not, those aren't as common as they were when they were more common.
Yeah.
You know. But I'm sorry, you were saying something about, were you going to say anything else about phone booth before I?
No. Just that it was of its time. I don't know. Yeah. That sentence got away from me.
But yeah, no, like a lot of the, like also like how not only how sarcastic all of the characters are in Die Hard, but also the way they are sarcastic, you know, it's very, like I said, it's very snappy. It's very, like a very kind of, particular kind of snappy, a very particular kind of like one-liners, you know, like when Alan Rickman is talking to Theo, the tech guy.
Well, hold on. Alan Rickman's character has a name too. Hans Gruber.
Well, everyone knows Alan Rickman's character. Like
okay, sorry. Go on.
When he's talking to Theo, you know, he's like, "Oh, can you break through the locks?" And then Theo says, "Oh, you didn't bring me for my charming personality," or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like that feels like a very 90s-ish thing, or like of that era. This was, you know, I know this was made in 88, but like late 80s, early 90s, it also blends together.
Sure.
Thematically. And also when John McClane takes the shoes from the first terrorist he kills, you know, it's like, oh, 9 million terrorists, and I got the one with feet smaller than my sister's. You know, like it's such a long phrase to say, but it's also, it feels like a very dated thing. At least now.
Why does that feel dated?
I don't know. It's just how wordy it is, you know, like, or like the construction of it. It feels like a very Seinfeld thing to say. You know what I mean?
No.
Like you contextualize it of like, or it. I don't know how to. My English majorness is failing me here. But like of all the days to track mud on the carpet, it's the day that the Pope is showing up or something. You know, something. You know, like it sounds like very like you don't hear that sentence structure.
Really?
As much as far as I can tell.
Huh.
But like,
I've never, like, I didn't make that connection while I was watching it. I don't think I've ever really thought about, like, quotes going out of style in particular.
Slang goes out of style a lot.
Slang, yeah.
But like, no, it felt very like Seinfeld, very like, you know, like it felt like something a stand-up comic would say of an era, but it felt weird seeing it folded into this movie script.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a reason why there's so many memorable lines in it. Like, it goes without saying, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. That's so well known.
Yeah, that's basically the tagline of the movie, of the franchise even.
Yeah. Or one that I remembered, I'm not even sure why, was Hans saying, I'm a fantastic thief. That's not it. I'm a wonderful thief. You know that line.
Sure. Let's say that's a line, and let's say that's how it sounded. But no, like a lot of people also like, you know, the whole like, you know, Mr. Takagi won't be joining us for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
I will count to 3. There will not be a 4. You know, there's a bunch of, and apparently
be a 4. Oh, I am an exceptional thief, Mrs. McLaren. That's it.
Still sticking with the voice.
Yeah.
No, but that's great. Yeah, no, there's a bunch of great lines.
Yeah.
A lot of them from Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
And apparently the Mr. Takagi won't be joining us for the rest of his life was ad-libbed on the spot.
Oh, really?
By Alan Rickman.
Those are always the best.
Yeah. Also, fun fact about the movie. Do you know who was first in line to be the main actor for the movie? The lead actor for the movie?
John McClane, you mean?
Yeah, to play John McClane?
Like Mel Gibson?
No. Do you want another guess, or do you want me to tell?
Oh, jeez. Nope, don't want another guess. I don't know any 80s actors.
Frank Sinatra.
What?
Because Die Hard is based on a book.
Yeah.
And the book is a sequel to another book, the book before it.
Right.
And that book, the earlier book, was made into a movie starring Frank Sinatra.
What?
So, legally, he was first in line, because Die Hard is technically a sequel to that first unconnected movie.
Oh.
They were legally obligated, from what I understand, to ask Frank Sinatra if he wanted to take the role first.
Yeah.
Even though he was like 70.
Yeah.
And that would have been a great movie.
Oh, man.
Same movie with a 70-year-old Frank Sinatra. That would have been amazing.
It would have been a musical.
Sure, yeah.
That is so funny. I do remember hearing that now that you say it. Well, we've come a long way. I don't know what to say about this movie.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but
please.
what did you think of the ignoring the masculinity?
Yeah. It's like the toxic masculinity part of it.
The like macho, whatever.
Macho bullshit.
Setting that aside, but like as the beats of the story, like the writing of it, the plot reveals, the bad guy's plan, you know? What did you think of that?
Oh, just really good. And lots of points where it was very suspenseful and interesting. There were hardly any times where it felt cliche to me, not taking into account
the age of the film.
Yeah, the age of the film, and the fact that it's informed a lot of other modern films now. It was fresh and fun, and that I appreciated, and the writing that we already touched on. I was going to say something else too. What was your question again?
The construction of the story, the bad guy's plots, the story beats.
Yeah, I liked the Bruce Willis's character, John McClane, was really interesting. He was very tough and smart, and I like him as a character, as someone who has a hard time opening up and who takes on a lot of responsibility for himself and is turns out to be badass. I find that kind of annoying typically, but if I ignore that and appreciate it as this movie for itself, he's an interesting character. And there was never a point in which I was thinking, this is just Bruce Willis with a tank top on. It felt like he was always the character, and it felt like that for everyone, especially Alan Rickman as well. He was fantastic. Yeah, it's good. I just have a hard time getting past that. I don't have to keep saying it. I have a hard time getting past that one thing. What about you for the writing and acting? I
like that. I always like a twist, especially if it's a good twist. Well, I guess only if it's a good twist. But how competent Alan Rickman's character is shown to be throughout the movie. Yeah. I find that, a competent villain really, ups the danger because they know what they're doing. They're very capable.
Yeah.
If, there are a couple of big bads in some of the seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I recently finished, that didn't seem as competent as they could have been. And so that sort of took away from the satisfaction of them being defeated because, of course, they're defeated. They're idiots. But with Alan Rickman's character, he except for John McClane, he planned for everything. He planned for the FBI. He had a plan to, that sort of played on what the FBI was going to do. And he needed the FBI to do what they were going to do.
Yeah.
For his plan to go properly.
Yeah, overall, and with the lights, he wanted them to turn off the lights.
Yeah.
There were a few moments like that.
Yeah, he wanted them to cut the power so that they could bypass the final law.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think TV Tropes calls it a Batman gambit, where he knows he doesn't need to plan for every situation. He just plans for the one he knows is going to happen. Sort of referencing the fact that Batman's superpower is that he just knows things are going to turn out the way they do, or whatever. So I like that his plan had several layers, and when he was phoning in the fake demands to the hostage negotiators of I want you to free these freedom fighters. Yeah. The Quebec Liberty group, the people in I forget the other place, but I remember
the Quebec
one. Of him just Rising Dawn or whatever, and even his henchmen, what? Oh no, I saw them in the paper the other day. Him just making these absurd demands to hide his actual plan. It was a clever thing that you don't see in that many movies, and when you do see it, it often elevates it a bit. Of they're playing on a different level. Yeah, that the normal cops don't get. They did a similar thing in Inside Man, right? With haven't seen it? Oh man, no, you gotta see Inside Man. Yeah, but. Where there are a bunch of twists and reveals and layers to the plan, and I like that in this one, and it's sort of this competency that Alan Rickman's character shows makes him a legitimate threat that John McClane needs to take out because he's the only one who can, and he wasn't accounted for in the planning. Yeah, right. In the first Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. Indiana, it's great, it's fun, it's amazing. But Indiana Jones doesn't really do anything. You know what I mean?
No, what do you mean?
So you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So a good chunk of the movie is him trying to get the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis do. Right. And towards the end of the movie, I haven't seen it in a while, so I might be missing some details here and there, or some broad strokes. But towards the end of the movie, the Nazis get it, they open it up, and all their faces melt. Oh yeah. Classic. With the main Nazi bad guy, his face just melting from his to a skull. Yeah. But by having that be the way the Nazis in the movie are defeated, in that they get it, they open it, and then they die immediately. Theoretically, if Indiana Jones hadn't intervened and diverted the Ark of the Covenant or messed with their plans or whatever, theoretically it could have gotten to into Hitler's office, and then he would have opened it, and then the war would have been over.
Or even if the same things happened but minus Indiana Jones, it would have been the same, right?
Exactly.
They would have killed themselves.
Yeah. So he didn't really need to be there when you think about it. Yeah. Right.
But in this movie, the whole thing is that if he wasn't there, the terrorists would have won because he accounted for it all, right?
Yeah, they were so prepared. They were not expecting an out-of-town New York cop visiting his family for the holidays. Yeah. So that was, that made the story, make sense in what the terrorists were ready for and what John McClane, I guess, was shown capable of doing and how he messed things up. And there weren't any or there weren't that many stupid characters in the movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. There were a lot of smart characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if John McClane was, more of a macho gun guy, running around in a tank top and bare feet, and Hans Gruber was supposed to be this, more mental plotting, planning kind of guy, and his henchman was the muscle. John McClane was still able to outplay Hans Gruber, the smart guy, in the brain versus brawn battle that spanned the movie.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really see it as brain versus brawn, though. You could definitely make that argument. Like, I could see that as John McClane being, like, more physically capable.
Oh.
But I never saw him as like, dumber than Hans. I think that's what you're saying, too. Like, everyone was quite intelligent in it.
Right, yeah, no, like, he wasn't, John McClane wasn't the smart, like, the character isn't the smartest character.
Yeah.
In terms of, because, like, Hans Gruber was able to, he's like, because they paint John McClane as sort of more of like a working class kind of guy. He's a big tough guy. He's a cop. Not necessarily a like office job or something.
Yeah.
Like the Holly's coworker who is like a salesman. The annoying 80s cocaine market guy.
Yeah.
He's more verbal than either brawn or brains.
Yeah.
And he is summarily executed by Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, John McClane is certainly more physical, more tactile than Hans Gruber, because when they do meet, Hans Gruber pretends like he like thinks quickly of like, oh, you're one of them, aren't you? Please don't kill me. And my American accent, that's totally, you believe this accent. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, which was, by the way, another really interesting part. Like, the main character meeting the villain and having no idea and just like talking to him one-on-one. That I didn't see that coming at all. I am sort of unsure at what point he figured it out, though, because he clearly figures it out at some point. Yeah.
Because he took out the bullets of the gun he hands him. Mm-hmm. But maybe I've just seen too many movies, so I'm expecting a similar, like, unfairly expecting a similar level of media literacy in these characters. But like, I would find it suspicious that this guy happened to escape the terrorists and make his way to the roof.
Right.
Well,
it could be that he gave him an unloading gun to just see if he would immediately turn and shoot him. Mm-hmm. And if he tried to walk away with the unloaded gun to, like, if he proved himself to be a civilian, maybe he would have given him bullets. Like,
although that's a very dangerous game to play with other people.
Oh, yeah, totally. But I think his character is more suspicious than smart. And that's one of his strengths. That's what I assume he would be thinking in that. So he never really knew, but then he acts like he knows because he's good at bluffing too, right?
And also, like, Hans Gruber just like speaks German right before he shoots him. Like, okay, I think you could have played that out a bit longer.
Yeah. That's true.
But also, and I understand this happened because there needs to be the rest of the movie, but he could have easily just shot Hans Gruber there. He literally had the gun pointed at him.
Yeah. And
then he turns around to shoot the two terrorists who come up the elevator.
Yeah. Well, then that's another suspension of disbelief, I think.
But then in the scene that leads into, there is another, like, clever, I guess, idea from Hans Gruber of like, oh, shoot the glass. He doesn't have shoes. That's going to be a real speed bump to him of having to run across the broken glass. Right. But yeah, no, and also, like, just the intelligence of the movie in the writing. I mean, overall, like, a lot of the elements are set up really early on. Like, when John McClane is talking to Mr. Takagi when he first arrives at the party, he like, oh, we're almost done building. This floor is under construction, and that's sort of where John McClane spends a lot of his time. That's sort of his base if he were to have one. And they mention it, really early on, so it's not just, oh, there happens to be this empty floor.
Right. Yeah, it's very calculated, the writing of the movie.
Yeah, the like foreshadowing or like Chekhov's gun. I forget. I'm not sure which one it would be, but like putting the gun on the mantelpiece early on, so then when it shows up, it's been mentioned. It's not just showing up out of thin air.
It's not Deus Ex.
Yeah, Deus Ex Machina.
Yes, I can never say that. Deus Ex Machina.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready for final thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts?
I think, especially after we've talked about it and I thought about it more, I feel like it's an action movie done really well. So, like, there's so many ways where it could have been done very poorly and in various cliched ways, but it was consistently interesting and exciting. And I think for that reason, I'll give it 2 thumbs up. I'm not rating it. I would call it an action movie done very well. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, like, I enjoyed it, And plus, it's such a big cultural icon that you sort of need to watch it, right, to fully participate, I suppose, in all the references to it, because it's one of the things that a lot of people talk about rather often.
Oh yeah,
right. Plus, it has Alan Rickman and Bruce Willis, and a bunch of other people who are various levels of famous.
A lot of excellent performances.
in
the movie.
And the writing is great, and like you said, it's a great action movie. Very well done.
And in a lot of ways, it's also informative of the 80s, which I think is fun for us in our modern context, which is why I like the world building so much, to see what it was like 30 years ago in this way. Yeah,
it's very much like of the era, right? Like you said, it wouldn't work if they had cell phones.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, John McClane is smoking in an airport. I don't think you can do that anymore that much,
Yeah, totally. And smoking on screen. I don't think main characters are allowed to smoke on screen.
Or at least heroes.
Heroes?
Yeah, I might have been before this movie, but from what I understand, they tend to avoid having the heroes smoke.
Right.
And if people do smoke, they're either like bad guys or like, the roguish kind of anti-hero kind of gray zone kind of characters.
Yeah.
So
it's like its time.
Yeah, generally only the bad guys smoke. Or Winston Churchill. I think he's one of the few like good guys who they do show smoking constantly. But yeah, no, they generally don't have the hero advocating for cigarettes in that way. I suppose.
Only smoking Marlboro. You know what I'm trying to say? Camels. Me, John McClane, I only smoke my Camels. Go on.
And I guess also to touch back on the thing you brought up about masculinity. Would you, because like we were just saying, it's a movie of a time. Would you say it's like in the context of the era? Would you say do you think it's more guilty of harmful masculinity, or would it be like era appropriate?
Well, I like the idea of you can only judge things to be as good as their era allows them to be. And this is any point of time, like at any time in the past, you have to look at the context of what's going on around the situation. And I think because of that, you're right. Like, you can't judge it too hard. I think if it came out today, it would bother me more than knowing it came out almost 30 years ago, 29 years ago. Actually. So I wouldn't be quick to assign judgment to it, whether it's good or bad or toxic or healthy. Well, maybe I should think on that some more. I think a lot of the things that portrays about masculinity are unhealthy, and if you take that for exactly what it is, that's not it's not a healthy viewpoint to have. But if you look at it as something from its era, it's understandable. It's a point of history. You can learn and you can watch modern movies with that in mind to see how different they are and to compare them to where we were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
No, because like a good, like, I think the only named female character that has any meaningful lines is Holly.
And maybe even named period.
Well, I think did the pregnant coworker get a name? I think she got a name.
Let's find out.
And did at the beginning when we first see Al, he's buying snacks for his wife who's pregnant. I forget if they mention her name. But
well, see, I mean, we're proving something by not knowing this. We know Holly's name. That's the only woman's name.
Yeah, the only that had any impact on the story. Really.
Yeah. And this does not pass even the Bechdel test, which is like the basics. do you know the Bechdel test? Yeah.
For can you explain for the listeners at home?
Yeah, for sure. So the Bechdel test is the like for a movie to pass the Bechdel test, there has to be two named characters who speak who are women. Named women who speak to each other about something other than a man. And often movies will do this and still not be very good movies, but it's an interesting sort of signpost for where a movie's at. Like this, for instance, does not pass it at all because even if there were maybe three named women, it's definitely centered around John McClane. You probably wouldn't find one sentence spoken by a woman that isn't about a man in this movie.
Well, actually, I I think at the beginning when Polly goes into her office,
Yeah.
and I think the pregnant lady is there.
Yeah.
They talk about her being pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
For a bit.
Let's see. Is she named? Oh, my goodness. Wait, I think Die Hard passes.
Good. I'm pretty sure she has a name.
You're right. Yeah, her name's Ginny. McLean's wife, Holly, talks to her secretary right at the beginning of the movie. I'm at BechdellTest.com. Holly says, Ginny, it's 6:40. You're making me feel like Ebenezer Scrooge. Go on, join the party, have some champagne. Ginny, thanks, Mrs. Gennaro. Do you think the baby can handle a little sip? Holly, Ginny, the baby's ready to tend bar. So they talk about something other than a man.
Unless the baby is a male. No, but yeah, so it does pass the Bechdel test. Although like while it is a good test, I've heard some complaints because it's not a perfect test. Yeah, because
this movie passes it, for instance, and it's not a feminist icon.
Like the dialogue that starts "Baby got back" almost passes it.
Okay.
I think the only reason it doesn't is because one of them doesn't have a name. But other than that, it passes the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
So it's not a immediate.
It's not a perfect test.
Yeah.
for how appropriate or how good a movie is.
Yeah, and I think I remember hearing that there were a bunch of other similarly aware tests, so to speak.
Yeah.
I forget the names of them, and the Bechdel test is certainly the most well known, I believe. But yeah, no, there are a bunch of other ones as well. But yeah, Die Hard passes the Bechdel test because they're talking about a pregnant lady drinking champagne.
I was so confident that it didn't. And then it did. Well, yeah. What are you saying?
I wasn't.
No. It's cool. I think it's time to wrap it up.
Well, I think that's all we have to say about Die Hard for right now. Thank you so much, listener, for listening to us. Please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find podcasts. And if you want to put some words down, leave a review, too. That'd be great. And if you want to do the extra bit more, you can support us on Patreon. We are All Doubt on Patreon. Every little bit helps. You can find us online at AllDoubt.com, on Twitter at AllDoubtPod.
That's AllDoubtPod.
Thank you. What do you think about Die Hard? Let us know. You can contact us at AllDoubtPod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, send us your questions, comments.
Let us know what other things we should cover. What games, books, movies, really anything, as long as it's affordable and accessible.
Yeah.
Signing off, I'm Joel.
And I'm Vincent. Thanks again for listening. Have a good week.
Let's say it at the same time.
Nope.
Go ahead.